Last time we talked about social science thinking, we very generally spoke about geography and about its relation to the social sciences. This time I want to more specifically talk about the issue of what science is. I want to talk about the very systematic nature of science and the way that science uses that to ultimately build theories and solve problems. That is, after all, what differentiates science from other forms of knowledge, an interest in what's called empiricism. Empiricism is any knowledge that's derived through very systematic observation, and this is used in both the natural and the social sciences, so it's not just exclusive to one or the other. Of course, empiricism, the idea that we can look at the world systematically and gain knowledge from it, isn't the sole domain of science, but what is different about science is that science claims to exclusively use empirical evidence in all that it's looking at and the answers it's trying to find. Now, a big differentiation that we can make is between empiricism and the systematic observation, an anecdote. An anecdote uses just a single, solitary, or very limited set of examples that haven't been systematically collected. For example, we might know about hunger in East Africa by seeing some news stories about it or by reading about it on the website of an organization that's working to end hunger, but we don't know anything systematic about it. In order to do that, we'd have to go and look at the very systematically collected observation of scientists to really reach conclusions about it. Another good example of this, and one that we'll touch on a little bit in the course, is the issue of healthcare. Many of us have very strong opinions about healthcare and about what's good or what's bad with regards to government policy. But oftentimes these notions of healthcare aren't really rooted in empirical data about what we know to really work in healthcare or not. It's when we start to use those systematic observations that we really start to make and draw scientific conclusions about the world. Now, development is another example of this. Last time I described the notion of the term development to help us to understand to a country's levels of economic and social achievement. Now, this is a very broad and sort of vague notion of what development is, but it's certainly an important thing that helps us to compare and contrast one country to another to try to explain really important global patterns and to draw conclusions about the world around us. Well, social scientists in the development field have created the Human Development Index, or HDI, as a way to make a systematic study of development. So geographers and other social scientists theorize that we can systematically look at economic data, educational data, and health data to judge the relative development of individual countries. The Human Development Index, which is used by the United Nations to study the issue of development, uses life expectancy at birth, educational attainment, and gross national income, which has been adjusted for purchasing power around the world, to come up with a single number that we can use to compare one country to another in terms of its levels of development. By using the HDI, as opposed to looking at it anecdotally, we're able to draw conclusions about the world using the systematic data. And this is just one example that extends to all the many different issues that we're going to be talking about in this course. But it's one that, of course, is going to be very important as we unfold various topics in this particular course. So I want you to think about this notion of empiricism. I want you to think about the systematic nature of information and data as we look at the world. Ultimately, I'm thinking about how the social scientists help us to understand the world.